Hi, everybody. Welcome to Purple Friday Show, episode 212. We obviously did not do a show last week because we were in our feelings. But, I have a special hat. It's one of my favorite new bands, but I think this hat fits where I feel right now and probably will feel for the rest of until the season starts. I'm just going to put this hat on real quick.
Oh, man, what we got? Emotional. Oh, man. Oh, man. It's just an emotional
Yeah.
roller coaster.
I'm still not over this. I'm still not over this. I know a lot of people compared this kind of to what happened in 2011 when the Ravens lost obviously to the Billy Cundiff kick wide right, and we saw the speech that Ray Lewis gave in the locker room after the fact, and how the team responded the next year. And some people tried to compare it now to what's happening right now, but you look at what's happened with the coaching turnover. What's likely going to happen with the free agents? P. Queen's probably going to be gone. We don't know what Matabike's situation is going to be. They're going to tag him or not. Odell likely he may come back, but probably not. Not at definitely not the money he was getting paid this season. You're going to lose out on Clowney's going to probably be too expensive at this point. Van Noy maybe he goes to another team, maybe retires. There's just so much turnover right now. What the Marlon Humphrey situation is going to look like. Ronnie Stanley, this whole O line, they already said that it looks like Zeitler's probably not coming back. They might not bring back Simpson. Moses is washed. And then you just said you got all this money tied up in Ronnie Stanley now. You can't trade him because I don't think any team's going to want to take up that contract. So it's like the only choice you have would be to cut him, was to be a post June 1 cut. But by then, it's just a lot of cap stuff that's got to happen to take place. And I think by June 1st, I don't know if there's going to be anybody that's going to be worth having, outside of, draft pick wise that you're going to want at that position. So you could be stuck around Stanley a whole nother year playing mid. So it's a situation now where the reason why I think this one hurts so bad and has been hurting. I thought by now I'd be over this, but it seems like every time I hear Harbaugh's mouth and just and then I see the pictures on Twitter and stuff of them showing the Chiefs getting off the plane in Vegas and getting the Super Bowl hats, and now they're doing the interviews this week and stuff. I'm just sitting here like that could have been Lamar, it could have been Mark Andrews. It should have been Mark Andrews. I'm sitting here it should have been those guys, and it just we can go ad nauseum about the stats. Everybody's talked about the 6 carries for the running backs, and for a team that was the number 1 rushing team, and I'm not just this season, since Lamar has been the quarterback for this Ravens team. I think the Ravens have been like 1 or 2, the number 1 or number 2 rushing team every single season since Lamar's been quarterback. But just like in 2019, as somebody brought up on Twitter, somebody showed the percentages of regular season rushing attempts versus what they did in the postseason, and it was a drastic difference where there's clearly a narrative being either painted by Harbaugh or Lamar Jackson that he can be a Peyton Manning, Joe Montana, Drew Brees, throw the ball 50 times a game, still hit 70% of his targets and do that. And that now, like at first 2019, you saw it was the Greg Roman offense, right? This is what we blamed. They didn't pass the ball enough. There wasn't enough route running in the game, whatever. This game, though, in the Chiefs game, there were plenty of occasions where Rashad Bateman was running wide open, had beat his guy. Lamar just didn't throw the ball to him. Lamar not stepping in the pocket when he was supposed to. Lamar not taking off and running. I think that one play where Lamar did break out of that I think a sack, or it was a design run play, and I thought it was to the house. I'm not thinking you know what play I'm talking about. Like, he was clearly gone, and he looks behind him, and the guy ends up chasing him down and tackling him. And everybody's like, Lamar in 2019, that he's gone.
He's gone.
Wheels. He's gone. Touchdown. And he turned back around and he slowed up, and the guy was able to get him. There were numerous occasions where in this game where Lamar had play opportunities the play wasn't there, took too long to develop, held the ball too long, and could have taken off and gotten 15, 20 yards easy. There was a clip that came out of audio of Odell, I think after the first touchdown, or the Kelsey touchdown, I think after the Kelsey touchdown, and Odell kind of going over Lamar like, come on, man, like you're special. We need you to do what you do. We gotta go ahead and do it. And even Odell early in the game could see that Lamar maybe wasn't himself, maybe wasn't trying to do what he's normally been doing in most of these games. What he did just last week, the week before, in the Texans game, in the whole second half, he took the game under his arm, and he led the Ravens to the victory in that game to get to the AFC Championship game. And it just felt like Lamar with Pat Mahomes, he was trying to prove a narrative that he didn't have to prove. And I think it's ironic now because the entire time Lamar has been in the NFL, all these, analysts on ESPN and Fox Sports and have said, oh, I think Lamar's a running back. Lamar runs too much, blah, blah, blah. But yet they come out right after that game. Why didn't Lamar run the football? Lamar should have been using his legs. The same thing they kill Lamar over, for the last 5 years, the same thing they kill Lamar over is the same thing they said, oh, why didn't he do that more? He should have ran the ball more. And look, they're going to do that. They're going to, put their foot in their mouths all the time. But at the same time, they weren't wrong. And when you get to the playoffs, the idea is you got to win the game. I don't care how you have to win it, what you need to do to win it. You have to win the football game. Now, I'll get to what Harbaugh said in the State of the Ravens. When they asked him, why'd you guys run the ball only 6 times? What was the deal with the rushing attack? Well, Harbaugh came out and said, he was like, well, I told him at halftime, we got to run the football more. And, we were in the 2-minute drill and the 4-minute drill. And we were just, we were behind by 10 points and stuff and all this and that. And it's like, that was, you were down 10 points. You weren't behind by 20. You weren't like the 49ers. Even the 49ers were down to 24-7 at one point, but they still ran McCaffrey. McCaffrey didn't stop getting the ball. And for only 6 carries for between your two running backs, not to mention Dalvin Cook, who didn't even play. He got a DNP designation during the game. Didn't even play. I didn't think he was hurt or anything. Didn't even play. But we've seen this time and time again. When Harbaugh goes against not coaches, I'm not even going to say that. Harbaugh in the playoffs, when they're down, panic. Doesn't matter if it's 3 points or it's 10. They panic. They get away from what they're doing, and all of a sudden they don't know how to play football anymore. Now, the defense in the second half figured it out. They only allowed the Chiefs to score 3 points the entire second half. I think they made them score they had to punt 5 times. There was plenty of opportunities in this game for the Ravens to win this football game. The Zay Flowers fumble into the end zone was the killer. That was the killer right there. And look, Zay being a young player, he made a rookie mistake. It was the worst time to make a rookie mistake. I don't blame him. It's sad that this is how it happened, but I don't blame. He was trying to make a play. He saw the end zone. He was trying to reach for it. Next time they say, just run into the end zone, man. Just don't even dive. Just run into it. Just run into the end zone. He's trying to make a play. He saw him on the sideline. He felt like he cost the team the game. I'm not going to take anything, put anything bad out there about Zay. He balled out there. He was the only receiver really doing much of anything out there for the Ravens. So I'm going to give him his credit. Gus Edwards, at this point, it feels like he's regressed a little bit. I think it could be time for him to maybe move on from him at this point. But for Monken, the entire offensive staff, all the line coach, everybody just panicked. Like Harbaugh, everyone no one was able to say, hey, let's calm down, let's chill out, let's calm down and figure this out. The defense figured it out. Yeah, they gave up 2 touchdowns back to back, but they figured it out. Anytime you can hold the Chiefs to 17 points with the Ravens defense, you should be able to win that football game.
Yeah.
The Ravens have been putting up the last 4 weeks before that game. We're averaging like 30 points a game against everybody. Beating up on the 49ers, beating up on the Dolphins. They're beating up on everybody, and they struggled to score as many points as they did in that Chiefs game. It was just it also made me mad watching Harbaugh and DeCosta up there in the State of the Ravens, Harbaugh and them kind of laughing and joking around and acting like this was just a big nothing burger. Meanwhile, the fans have been irate. They've been calling to the radio now for 2 weeks, still talking about this. This is not set well with the fan base in Baltimore for the Ravens. It has not. And now when you consider Mike McDonald is now gone, Anthony Weaver is gone. Is it Denard Wilson? I think the cornerback coach.
Mm-hmm.
He's gone. The assistant O-line coach is now gone. Like they've almost purged the entire defensive side of the ball with the coaching staff. We don't have a lot of confidence going forward, especially considering all the issues they got to settle just even up front on the O-line. When you think about the only guy that you really know is coming back is Linderbaum at this point. The only guy you're really convinced that's coming back, for sure, is Linderbaum. You got to figure that whole offensive line situation out. You got 2 running backs now. J.K. Dobbins looks like he's a free agent, but you got Keith Mitchell also coming back from an ACL injury. Gus Edwards, who he may not be back because of his role, how diminished. Justice Hill, I don't know where he kind of fits into this at all, really. At this point, you don't really have that. You don't have that elite running back right now. You don't with the Baltimore Ravens. It felt like when Andrews came back, it felt like it took away from the offense a little bit. It did. Definitely did. It felt like that they were trying too much to give Andrews the ball, and everything else just kind of suffered. But a part of this goes to Lamar Jackson too. I'm going to put blame on Lamar because at this point, when you got the contract, that's not weighing over you anymore. You played healthy all year. You're going to be looks like another MVP award coming your way, and he's still young. He's only 27 years old. I'm hoping these are one of those games that ends up building his character for the run coming forward. We've seen quarterbacks go this before. John Elway didn't win a Super Bowl until he was in his mid-30s. Peyton Manning didn't win until he was 29, 30 years old when he won his first. They were saying the same thing about Peyton when he was in the first 4 years of his career. He hadn't won anything in the first 4 years, and he's one of the greatest throwers of the football I've ever seen. In my opinion, he's the greatest. Like as far as like the game, like the game management part, he's one of the best quarterbacks I've ever seen. But it took him some time, so I'm not gonna knock Lamar for it's gonna take multiple chances for him, I think, to get to that point, especially if you're gonna run into Mahomes every year. This is what I think I said this weeks ago, that I know the Chiefs are limping into the playoffs, but it's still the Kansas City Chiefs. It's still Andy Reid. It's still Pat Mahomes. They've won 2 Super Bowls for a reason. Like they know how to act in this part of the season. They know what they got to do to win these football games. And you look at it, how the Chiefs played in that game. They did the Ravens offense better than they did. They ran the Ravens offense against them. They did it all game. They played clock management. They kept the ball out of the Ravens' hands. They were just dinking and dunking up the field, taking whatever the Ravens defense gave them. And Lamar and them I think they just panicked. And look, I think Lamar is going to get enough criticism for this. He decided not to play in the Pro Bowl this year. So, he's still feeling it. And, they said he's going to be more involved in the offense next year. But I think Lamar has to get into his head now. I think Ryan Clark said it best. Ryan Clark said, Lamar's just got to worry about winning football games. Forget about what we say on here. Forget about what they say on TV. At the end of the day, when you're getting your gold jacket, what are they going to be saying about you at that point? It doesn't matter how you win the Super Bowl. The fact is you won the Super Bowl, right? It doesn't matter how you do it. Lamar could run for 200 yards every playoff game from here on out. He could by himself and still win a football and win the Super Bowl. If that's what it takes, that's what it takes. And each game's going to dictate what he has to do. And I think Lamar hopefully has learned now at this point, don't force it. Do what you do best. Run your offense like Bill Belichick and Tom Brady did for 20 years. They ran their offense against everybody. It didn't matter who it was. You got to come in here and prove to us that you can stop what we're doing. And I think the problem is with John Harbaugh, especially, I want to keep saying this, that John Harbaugh just clearly doesn't know what he's doing, which is evidenced by the fact that they tried to bring in Jerry Rossberg this week to be game coordinator or whatever the hell that's supposed to mean. Rumor is that John Harbaugh was the one that wanted this move to be made for Jerry Rossberg to come on as game management coordinator, but apparently Steve Bisciotti said no. Like, why am I going to pay another guy to do part of your job? That's part of your job. So I would have to assume if that is the case, that Harbaugh's on the hot seat here. Harbaugh's going to be in the hot seat. That if y'all don't get at least to the AFC Championship game next year, there could be some change coming. But this was a letdown by the entire coaching staff for sure. Lamar takes some of this blame, but the entire coaching staff let them down in the moment they shouldn't have let them down.
Yeah. I just want to say this. A long time ago, I you know, had this amazing opportunity with this amazing girl, right? And I fumbled the bag. And I liken this to that situation because then there's that what if. Like, what if I did what I needed to do to seal the deal? Where would I be? Where would my life go? You know what I mean? Fortunately for me, I ended up marrying her, but we don't know if this situation is going to come back around for the Ravens. You know what I mean? This is a situation where you had that year, everything was lined up. You had the guys under contract. You had the most talented defense. You had an MVP quarterback. You had the weapons. You had everything. You had that bright young defensive coordinator. You had a new offensive coordinator. Everything was lined up. But when it was all laid out in front of them, all laid out in front of them, we fumbled. No pun to Zay Flowers, but we fumbled it. So this was tough. This was heartbreaking. I mean, I don't think this may have been tougher than 2011. I'm just going to be honest. Because 2011, it was kind of iffy if this was going to be our run, you
Mhm.
know. And let's be honest, we all thought Billy Cundiff might miss that field goal. But this, I don't think we saw this coming. Mm-mm. If we had lost this game, I would have thought it would have been like a barn burner coming down to the last second and Mahomes pulls a Mahomes on us. But for us to get pumped around that field, even before the game, from Kelsey and Mahomes,
Mhm.
just a team, they out physicaled us. Let's
Yep.
just keep it real. They out physicaled us. So this was really tough. Like still, pause, like got a bad taste in my mouth. So there is a lot of blame to go around. I mean, you already hit on it. Lamar, he just has to play better. He has to play his
Mhm.
game. And smart games. I think the one thing we talked about in the chat, the one play that stands out to me from the whole game is that pass to Likely that got intercepted.
Mhm.
You had Nelson Aguilar coming right across for the first
Yep.
down. If you really watch, he kind of waves Nelson off and then forces that pass downfield to Likely. Triple coverage. Yes, Likely he was interfered with, he was shoved to the ground. But even if he wasn't, he was not catching that ball. It was getting intercepted. So that sums up the whole experience for me. Like we made decisions out of our character because we were pressing, we were forcing, and Lamar didn't play his game. Like you said, he wasn't running the ball when he should have run. There were so many times he just held the ball when he should have just took off. Because 2019, 2020, even previous week at the Texans, Lamar would have took off at certain points that got 20, 15, 30 yards. There was just opportunity there. I want to shift. I want to shift to Monken. That was his worst call game of the season.
Mhm.
What the hell was the game plan? What was it? Does anybody know? Anybody in the chat? What was the game plan? We didn't run the ball. You already talked about it 6 times. What was our passing game plan? I don't know if it was to chuck it deep. Was it to beat him in the flats? What was our game plan? How were we attacking KC? Because it looks like we just did a little bit of everything and just hope something stuck. We got pretty lucky early with that pass to Zay for the touchdown. That wasn't a normal pass. That was a broken play
Mhm.
that we were able to capitalize on. But after that, what do we really have going on? Like, what was our philosophy? We got so far away from ourselves. And what did I say all year, Miles? I don't fully know what our identity is throughout the season. I knew we could run the ball, but game to game, what was our identity? There wasn't one. We couldn't figure it out. Even though we were successful, we didn't know what our offensive identity was, and it was exposed in the AFC Championship. Um, I put blame on Zay. Young rookie mistakes. Young rookie mistakes. Um, the fumble was inexcusable. The taunting was inexcusable.
Yeah.
Um, put a lot of blame on Harbaugh. I mean, what do we all say about Harbaugh when his team has their back against the wall, they start to get real undisciplined. And we saw
Oh
that
yeah.
throughout this game. These penalties were outrageous. Now, some of them, we'll talk about in a second with the refs, but some of them were like, yo, what are you doing? What are you doing? We shot ourselves in the foot so many times defensively. And even with Zay, like it was just inexcusable. We kept putting ourselves in bad positions. To these refs, the theory about the one ref and the away games, we saw that come to fruition. And when those penalties started coming, I was like, all right, I know what this is. Though I don't know. I don't know if this is all about Vegas, if this is all about Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift Super Bowl. Is this some bigger plot for Taylor Swift to win Album of the Year and Travis Kelce to win the Super Bowl
Super Bowl,
MVP?
right? All right.
And they ride off to the sunset and have this big wedding on People Magazine and all that crap. I don't care about all that. At the end of the day, the refs have to play better. I mean, they have to call the game better. Like the game was awful, awful. There was so many pass interferences that occurred that hurt us that were not called all the way up into the last drive. So all around, so much blame to go around, and it was just rough to see. Shout out to the defense for stepping up. Shout out to Kyle Hamilton once again showing he is the best player on that defense. I love Roquan. You are the leader, but Kyle Hamilton is the best player on that Ravens defense, and he showed it time and time again. The one thing I do want to call out that I didn't like defensively is like why weren't we doubling Kelce from the jump? I was trying to figure out. I was like, Mike McDonald, you already in Seattle? Like, what's going on?
Right. We're playing
Why
man
weren't we
coverage on him
doubling
all
Kelce
game. I was like, what is going on? I was like,
and leaving wide open zones?
he had
When they weren't going man.
11 straight catches. 12. He
That
caught
is
all 12 of his targets. I think it was all 12. I think he caught all 12 of his targets
Look, he
for
was
100
killing
something
us
yards.
so bad. I put in a parlay for him to get 14 catches and almost got it.
Mm.
When he started going off first, I put in a parlay for him to get 14 catches, and he came too short. Why did we bracket him? It's crazy. Reflecting back on this game, yeah, great season, right? But none of that matters when you show up like this in the AFC Championship. And I really question, man, was Harbaugh the guy? Is he the guy? Because the person that we saw throughout this year that the team responded to is now in Seattle.
Yeah.
Mike McDonald. That defense, they play their butts off for him. And so I don't know if what Harbaugh has going on is still resonating with the players. It's just kind of rough, man. It's really kind of rough. I know we're going to get into the state of the Ravens, but this game really kind of put a dark cloud over the future that looked so bright a week before. So, it's rough. Guys got to step up. Lamar has to have a strong offseason. I know we talked about he needs to get with a QB mentor because his mechanics are cool when everything is good. But when he start pressing, when he stops trusting his teammates, when he don't trust his old line, my man's mechanics is all over the place. He's not driving that foot forward. And he's getting too happy with the sidearm throws, and he's not taking off when he should. So I think he needs to get with somebody, a QB mentor that he can just soak knowledge up and really get down the mental part of his game. I'm not saying he's dumb. No, that's not what I'm saying. It's about being mentally tough in those crucial moments when your back's against the wall. And maybe that's just a maturity thing, but I think that's something I need my QB to have. I ride with Lamar to the death, pause. But this is just what we need. This is what's going to give him the Super Bowl that I want him to have. So that's my take.
No, you're right with the Lamar situation. We've seen him progressively get better every year he's been in the league. So he's worked on some things. We also obviously see, especially this offseason, he's got to work on deep passing. He's got to work on that accuracy. He missed a lot. He's got to work on that. And like you said, he's got to have that clock, right? It's one of those things like Peyton Manning has said it on, like him and Eli have said on their simulcast when they do Monday Night Football. And they're sitting there watching the game, telling the quarterback, just go, either go down or go. Like they're sitting here like you're throwing the ball too long. Like they're sitting. So Lamar has to get with somebody. I don't know if it's like a quarterback coach that does something on the side, kind of like what Chuck Smith does with defensive end linemen, or just a former quarterback, that's played in the league. But he's got to work on the situational stuff, right? He's got to work on that. How to handle the blitz better, because we know now every team, regardless of how often they blitz during the season, they blitz the Ravens 2 or 3 times more than they did any other time of the year. So coming in, they're going to blitz you. They're coming in when they play the Ravens, they're going to blitz the Ravens. Even if they blitz 30% during the season, they're going to blitz the Ravens 60 to 70% during the game every time. So they're going to stack 8 in the box, right? That's what they're going to do. They're going to try to take the run away. They're going to try to blitz him and cause issues and pressure and stuff like that. So he's got to work on, if you don't see it, just go. Don't wait for it to happen. Just go. You can have another play later. You can get it later. You don't have to get it right now. So again, I think this is a progression for Lamar. Like it's one of those, we saw Ray Lewis grow as a middle linebacker in the league, over the years and stuff. So it's a different game. It's a different game than it is in college, and he's going to have to. I think this was hopefully a learning moment for him, that he'll realize that okay, he knows what he has to work on now. He knows what he's got to go work on. So hopefully he gets with somebody in the offseason and works on that and stuff, and also at the same time, not necessarily that like become like you want him to become a better passer, but don't forget what makes you elite too. Like if you can run, take the ball, go 20, 35, 30 yards, go. He did a really good job protecting himself this year, getting down when he needed to, not going overzealous and getting too much when he didn't need to. So he's got that down. He knows when he needs to get out of bounds or he needs to like slide or whatever to stop the play. He's just got to work on when and where to do that kind of stuff, right? Don't try to force stuff downfield if it's not there. Don't force it. So he's got some stuff to work on. Now, like you said about Kyle Hamilton, that one series, he single-handedly stopped Chiefs by himself on that one series. He had like a pass deflection. Then he had one, I think he tackled a guy in the backfield, and then another one he knocked like he had another pass, he like knocked the ball down. He single-handedly stopped the Chiefs on one drive by himself. I was like, I don't even think the Ravens need to wait at this point. I know he's only in his second year, and they got him. They can do I think it was he was a first-round draft pick, so they can do the option. Pay that man now. Just lock him up for the next 8 years. Just lock him up. Like what you don't get guys like that at strong safety that often. You don't see guys at strong safety play like that. That's a generational talent there. They need to lock him up. Lock him up for sure. And like you said about the the referees, I'll get to that. The phantom holding, they didn't call a holding call on against the Chiefs when they had likely down the middle of the field. Clearly a holding penalty. The one on Odell, they didn't call that one either. So, and I think Owe posted a picture of him trying to get to Pat Mahomes, and he was clearly being like you see the arm like around his like getting held during the game. So they called everything against the Ravens, and like you said too, they got him out of their element. Kelsey chirping and John with them the whole time, getting them to just get a reaction. You see, and the thing, Kelsey would be standing right next to the referee and talking
nothing.
Grabbing the dude's jersey, smacking him side the head or something. And I think Van Noy one time got up in his face and hit him. Referee right there through the flag. Like, and he's over there like clapping and stuff. So I'm like, you know what? I used to like Kelsey. I did. He's a jerk.
Can't stand him now.
I can't stand him now. He's a spoiled brat. All of them are. The Chiefs. Yeah. The Chiefs are now the Patriots. They're all spoiled brats now because they expect everything to go their way. So, but let's get to the state of the Ravens. So this is our state of the Ravens, not what Harbaugh and them said. They gave a lot of fluff, during that state of the Ravens. They were like, yeah, we had a good season. We saw some guys, do better. They made some strides in the next year. Matty BK, of course, had a phenomenal season. We saw Geno Stone play well. Kyle Hamilton became an All-Pro in his second year. Pay Queen became an All-Pro this year. We saw some strides by, Likely as well. Lamar took some steps forward. So we saw some stuff there. But at the end of the day, I think, like you said, with how everything had fallen into place for the Ravens this year, I don't know how can you call this a successful season. Like I would have been, it would have been successful if you get to the Super, even if you get to the Super Bowl and lose. The goal at this point, with the way this team was built, was to get to the Super Bowl. And like you said, it would have made more sense if you just got, all right, it was 42-37. Like it was just they were going blow for blow. Like it was, you lose that kind of game, it is what it is. But to lose that kind of game, the Ravens did, like I said, they got out physical and everything in that game. It just the crowd in there was dead. Like everybody was just like, what is happening right now? And for the Costa and Harbaugh to come in there, I think on this past Monday to have their State of the Ravens, and it was just kind of looking like, we're sitting here just like, so we didn't really learn anything of substance in this game. I mean, in this press conference, they were very non-committal about what the situation with J.K. Dobbins. Are they going to try to bring him back? Ronnie Stanley, they don't know. Odell, they don't know. There's a lot of I don't knows, going on. Harbaugh just kind of seemed like, like I said, when they asked him about the game plan during the game, when he said, "Oh, we tried to run the football, we just didn't get around to it." I'm like, it was 3 hours. The game is 3 hours, and you trying to tell me you couldn't get around to running the football? You're only down 10 points. Like, you think about it, the way the Ravens were playing in that second half. If the Ravens had a couple drives of 8-9 minutes and they run the football most of the time during those drives, they're ahead in the fourth quarter. Easy. Like, that's easy. The way the defense was playing, they only allowed 3 points. So, I mean, they're either tied or ahead by the time they enter the fourth quarter. So, a new ball game at that point. But it's the panicking. The fact that they considered bringing Jerry Rossberg in to be a game manager, whatever the title, that right there tells me that Harbaugh doesn't know anything. He doesn't know what he's doing at all. It was all fine and good, the week before, and they were dancing in the locker room, after winning against the Texans, but going out there and putting that dud up for the Ravens fans who have been hype all week. I mean, I remember I was dropping dropping something off my parents or something, and the Beltway at like 9 a.m. get to the stadium was already backed up. 9 a.m. The game wasn't until 6:30. People are already around the stadium, cooking out, going to the bar. Like the entire city was ready. We just knew we were gonna roll through these Chiefs because look, Tooney was out, Willie Gay was out. Everything had lined up for the Ravens to win this football game, but at least by 12 points. A lot of the commentators said, "Oh, the Ravens should win easy by double digits, easy." The way they're playing right now, and to throw that kind of performance out there for people that spent I don't know how many dollars. People posting how many once they paid for tickets to get last minute tickets for the game, dropping $2,000. Some people, $2,000 for these tickets for the game, and to have that kind of performance, that doesn't bode well going forward for next year, especially considering with the free agents popping up. They're going to have some cap space, but there's not a whole bunch to make a lot of moves in free agency. It's really going to depend on the draft. Hopefully, maybe you get a hometown discount from somebody or something like that. But this receiving core isn't going to look the same. I'm assuming maybe I don't know. Maybe they bring Nelson back. Maybe they bring Nelson back. He was pretty good with Lamar during this year. I don't think Odell's coming back. Bateman could get traded. That seems like the most likely possibility that he's going to probably get moved. So that leaves Zay out there. Your tight end position is pretty solidified. I mentioned earlier that O-line is in flux. You don't know what that line is going to look like this coming year, especially if Stanley comes back at that left tackle position. Because that fumble, I know they attribute the fumble stat to the quarterback, but that was on Ronnie Stanley. The man ran right past him. Like, I mean, what are you supposed? We paid the reason why left tackles, quarterbacks, and defensive ends get paid the way they do is because they impact on the game. That's why. Yeah. And Ronnie Stanley. Yeah, so we talked about him enough ad nauseum. The other thing too about that game before I get to the State of the Ravens, they didn't do any of the rotation of the line during that game.
Them in there.
Everybody, I was going to Twitter during the game, and somebody was like, "They're not doing any of that line rotation they have been doing for the last 6 weeks. That it worked. Yep. They hadn't done any, everything they did that worked. They did not do. I was like,
at all.
So, I think, the O-line situation is in flux. The running back situation is also in flux. We don't know what that's going to look like next year. Justice Hill's going on to his 4th year. This would be his 4th year, I think, on the team. I don't know what his situation is going to be. Maybe they move on from Gus and they go into the draft and find some new talent. I don't think they're going to bring J.K. back just because of his injury history. They may try with Keaton, but I don't know if Keaton will be ready by the time the week 1 starts because of how late he got hurt. On the defensive side of the ball, the line, you got Broderick Washington locked up. Maybe they'll tag Matabike. That sounds like what's going to happen. They're going to tag him in hopes of getting a long-term deal done. You don't know what's going to situation with Clowney. Van Noy is probably going to go elsewhere. So you got to rely on Ajabo, who got hurt early this year and didn't play. Owe, he had 3 sacks, 4 sacks this year. He didn't take that. He didn't make that step forward, which is concerning considering you look at how Matabike played this year, how Clowney played this year, and Owe didn't make that step. They brought in Chuck Smith for this reason, to help guys like Owe to get to that next level with the pass rush moves. And it seemed like he just he was stuck in neutral. He didn't move forward. We saw Clowney played his best football of his career with the Baltimore Ravens. Matabike made, 15, 16 million probably a year off of this season based on what he's played. And Owe didn't make that step. And then Ajabo again, here you go, Ajabo, who played 1 game all of last year. And then he played 1 game this year, 2 games?
Yeah.
2 games this year? And he's going to go into his 3rd year, and you got to wonder, they're going to worry about keeping him for that 4th year. The cornerback situation is, Rocky Sin, Ronald Darby. Do they bring them back? I think you're set with Brandon Stevens. You got Brandon Stevens there. I think they got to do some kind of restructuring with Marlon Humphrey. They got to do something there. He's not the same guy. He's like Jimmy Smith now. He's like Jimmy. Jimmy was really good for us, really solid until he started getting hurt. Once Jimmy started getting hurt, he just wasn't available. He was fine when he was out there, but he just wasn't out there a lot after a while. And Marlon's starting to become like Jimmy Smith. So you got to wonder what they're going to do with him. I think they're fine right now with the safeties, Marcus Williams and, Kyle Hamilton. Marcus hopefully will have been fully healed so he can be not the one-arm bandit like he was most of the season. So he'll be back. Outside linebackers thing, Tyus Bowser, I would have to assume he's going to probably retire. I mean, he wasn't on IR. He wasn't on anything. Like, I don't know what the situation was with Tyus Bowser this year. Maybe they bring him on as a linebacker coach to take Zach Orr's position. At this point, I don't know. So, I mean, there's still some things in flux. I will say, with losing Mike McDonald and Anthony Weaver and Denard Wilson, there's going to be, I feel like, somewhat of a regression on defense. And I'm not saying that they're going to go like the Eagles and fall off a cliff and be like 31st in pass defense or anything else like that. But I definitely think being first in turnovers, takeaways, being first in sacks, and I think being first in defensive, is it points allowed, being first in points, points allowed. And I don't think that's going to hold. I think there's going to be, with Zach Orr, especially considering that this will be his first year calling plays, I think he's got the attitude that I think the players love him. I mean, not on defense, the players love him, but he will be calling plays. So there's going to be some growing pains with him. So this could look a lot like the 2022 Baltimore Ravens, that defense, those first few weeks where they're just giving up touchdowns, back to back. Like, what the hell is going on? Because the defense can't close games. So I feel like there's going to be a few games, especially next season, where this is going to be the defense that gave the game away. They're up by 20 points and the defense is gave the game away because Zach Orr is still trying to figure things out. So it's going to be more on Lamar this offseason. It's going to be more on Lamar, and depending on what they do in the free agency and in the draft. But this is going to be definitely more on Lamar now. The window to win the championship was now because Lamar was just getting, the money, the big money wasn't really kicking in for Lamar until I think either next year or 2025. But once that's now that you've lost the coordinators and your receiving core may take a little bit of a hit as well. You don't know what the running back situation is looking like. You don't know what the old line's going to look like. I don't know they're going to have that. Lamar has, since he's been here, has had a winning record. He's won the most games of any quarterback since he's been drafted. Since 2018, he has one of the best winning percentages of any quarterback in the NFL. I don't think that changes next year. However, the dominating way this Ravens team was beating teams this past season, I don't think that's going. I think that win total may go down. They were 13-4. I think that was the record. Yeah. It may go down to they may 11. It may be 11 and 6. That's 11-6 for me. But I also have to, if I'm Steve Bisciotti, I have to look at, and I'll mention this before we get to the, when we move on to the Orioles later, um, to see what the Orioles are doing right now. They got new ownership, and 2 days later they signed Corbin Burns from the Milwaukee Brewers. They trade for him, the ace that they've been asking for the last 2 years. It's weird. Just weeks ago, we were asking what's the outlook of the Orioles for the next 5 years versus the Ravens, and I think we all said, like, the outlook is right now it's the Orioles because they have a young talent, but we weren't really sold on the ownership, right? We weren't sold on the ownership, so we don't know how long these guys are going to be here because the Orioles owner is cheap. Angelos is cheap. They got new ownership now. I think that ownership group coming in is like the fourth or fifth richest ownership group in Major League Baseball. So they're going to have deep pockets now. They can keep guys like Adley and Gunnar and Jackson Holiday now for the Baltimore Orioles. They can keep those guys there. So the outlook for the Orioles going forward, it's the sky's the limit right now. Sky's the limit. They got the pitching staff. They may not be done with that either. They could add any other arm to that pitching staff. So the sky is the limit. That's Ravens team for the next 5 years. I think that depends on John and Lamar. To be honest with you, it depends on John Lamar at this point. I think EDC's done a pretty good job of filling this roster out. Beginning of the year, we had a lot of questions about EDC and what he was doing, but I think he did a really good job plugging those holes that he needed to, during the season with Kyle Van Noy, bringing Clowney in and Ronald Darby and Rock Ya-Sin, bringing those pieces in to, fit what they needed to do to get to this point in the year. So I think he's done a good job with that, but he's going to have to do a hell of a job this offseason because there's a lot of pieces he's got to fix. And the AFC isn't getting any easier, especially with Jim Harbaugh coming into the Chargers now, taking the Chargers job. This isn't going to be any easier from here on.
Yeah, my outlook is a little bit brighter, but there is a lot of work. I was looking to think about like who I see leaving this team. I don't care about that press conference anymore because my sentiments are like, is that what you felt? It was a bunch of bull. But when we talk about the outlook of the Ravens, I look defensively, right? I'm a little higher on Owe than you, Miles.
Mm-hmm.
Like Owe, he was used differently, and I think it's just they just like kind of just settled into like, yo, he's a role guy. They started taking him out on passing downs. He didn't play a lot of pass rush snaps. So I think he had like 5 sacks, but he didn't play a lot of pass rush snaps. If you really look at it and break it down, Tavius Robinson, the rookie, only had 100 less snaps than Owe.
Hmm.
All right. So I think and he was pretty solid in pass rush. I think he was pretty good. But I think they are really pushing him into that Courtney Upshaw back in the day. Courtney Upshaw, that role, like this guy is a run defender. He sets the edge. We're not using him on passing downs. And that's going to decrease his value. Now, what they do this offseason, knowing that, doesn't mean they're going to make a move with him because, they spend a first round pick on an edge setter. I don't know. But I think he's still a valuable piece. I think he's still going to grow. I remember how long we were waiting on Matt Judon and Zadarius Smith to break out, and they eventually did. But he's right now he's an edge setter. He's like locked into that role. Also defensively, like our philosophy changed. We kind of went to a 3-3-5 defense. Typically a 3-4. And we use like Vanoy and Queen, Morris pass rushers, and the only real true edge guy that we used in the pass rush game was just Davion Clowney. So I think that says a lot to our defensive philosophy this year. And to be honest, Patrick Queen played the most snaps out of everybody. So if we lose him, those snaps have to be filled. And I mean, who are we really looking at? We're not looking at Malik Harrison because that guy. He probably runs a 5-flat 40.
I like Trenton though. Trenton Simpson was
Trent
that
Simpson. We got
Steelers
Josh
game.
Ross.
He balled out in that Steelers game. I was impressed.
Yeah, and so he's inexperienced, but he might get that shot. But when we look in the defensive backfield, what's going to happen? Ronald Darby was on a 1-year deal. Arthur Millette was on a 1-year deal. I'm not
Mhm.
real high on Arthur Millette, but I think he was solid. Rocky
Especially
Sin,
in pass rush. He was
yeah,
excellent.
Rocky Sin, 1-year deal,
Mhm,
but he
mhm.
played the fifth most snaps out of all the cornerbacks. And then when we go down the line, everybody's saying, "Are we going to get rid of Marcus Williams and keep Geno Stone?" When Marcus Williams got healthy, Geno Stone's snaps went down.
Mhm,
And to really
mhm.
put that into perspective, Geno Stone only played 26 snaps in the AFC Championships. He only played 24 snaps against the Texans. So Marcus Williams is a little bit more valuable to this defense down the stretch.
Mhm.
Marcus Williams played 100% of the snaps, 6 out of the last 8 games, including the playoffs. So his value is a lot higher than Geno Stone's in his defense. Even though Geno Stone had the splash plays, the
Yeah.
interceptions, Marcus Williams was the guy snap to snap, even though he didn't have the turnovers to show for it. And go to defensive tackle. What are we doing, Michael Pierce, Broderick Washington? Broderick Washington got that deal, but Travis Jones played more than him. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
yeah, that
Michael
may
Pierce is getting a
that may
little
come back to bite
old.
them. Yeah.
Yeah, he getting a little old. So where are we going to allot this money to really plug up? Are we going to hope Travis Jones takes that next step this coming year? We get rid of Michael Pierce. We gave Broderick Washington this money, but we're not seeing anything from him. So there's a lot of questions there. But I feel like at least on the defensive line, we've drafted so well. Most of these guys have come to the third, fourth, fifth round. So I have total faith we can figure that out. But with our cap situation, we really have to look at position by position. I mean, if I go to the offensive side of the ball, wide receiver, Odell ain't coming back. Not
No.
with him, he wasn't used that much. You know what I mean? We couldn't, and we can't pay him 20 mil to get 40% of the snaps.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Nelson was solid. He was solid, but I think he's on a 1 or 2 year deal. I don't know if we got to re-sign him. Bateman's coming up on an extension. It's a lot of stuff to figure out with these Ravens. Do we draft another wide receiver this year? We go to running back. What are we doing with Gus? I told you 4 weeks ago,
You
Miles,
did. You did.
we have to have a conversation about
But
Gus
Gus. Yep.
Edwards.
Yeah.
He's been regressing. And it's crazy. We say he deserved his shot to be the number one back for a while. And he got it this year. And when he got it, it's ceded to Justice Hill. It's ceded to, and when he got it back, it's ceded to Keaton Mitchell. I mean, Gus is not a number one back.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
our fourth quarter long drive back, but he's not a number one back. And that has to be addressed because J.K. Dobbins, I don't care what nobody says, he's not walking through that front door. He's just
Nope.
not.
Nope. He's done here.
Um,
He made his comments last year. He's not coming back. He's done.
Keaton Mitchell, he got to recover.
Yeah.
Justice Hill, I'm way higher on than I've ever been, but we need a guy.
Yeah. Need a guy.
We need a guy. So I don't know if this means that we go try to get Derrick Henry on a right price deal or
Saquon.
what?
I
Or
want Barkley.
Saquon. Yeah.
That's what I want Barkley.
We need speed at the
They
back running
need
back
they
position.
need they need that
We
explosive back.
we
They need that.
saw what this offense was with an explosive back when Keaton
Mhm.
Mitchell was actually getting the ball. So when you look at it, there's a lot to think about. And I haven't even got to Lamar. When we think about the coaching staff, I agree with you. I think there's going to be slight regression on the defense. But I have faith in Zach Orr. I mean, that guy sold me on his intro interview.
Mhm.
Playing violent.
So
I love it.
we gonna hit everybody as hard as we can.
I love it. I feel like we're gonna get a lot of flags, but I love it.
Yeah.
But I think if we're able to return most of our defense, I think we'll be all right. But it's just offensively. What do we do? Because when we put this offense together, we went in like this is the year. So contractually, we got to figure out what does this offense look like next year. So we'll see. I want to see Lamar take more ownership in the offense, like Harbaugh said. I want to see this offense grow philosophically next year. and when it comes to calling plays. So I think I'm not going to say what our record is going to be because I just don't know. Because after seeing EDC pull stuff out of the dumpster,
Yeah.
anything's possible. It could go either way, but I think there's just a lot of work to do. So I think I'm just going to go into the offseason with that. There's work to do, and EDC always finds a way to pull somebody out the trash bin and recycle them. So we'll see, but there's work to do, and I see some new guys playing some of the key roles for us next year.
No, I mean, we said this about Matabike, 3 years ago, right? Is he going to be that guy? And here he is, being that guy for us. And Geno Stone was what, a sixth, seventh round draft pick, and
Yeah,
how he played this year. So the Ravens have been able, to use a lot of their late round draft picks in pivotal roles to make big plays, for this team. So it's not like they can't be done. It's like you said, it's gonna take some work. Um, with the with the I'll ask you this. So what do you think, like, if you're going in free agency, right, on offense? I'll start with that. Just do with the offense. If you're going in free agency and there's a Mike Evans available, maybe a Michael Pittman Jr. available as well, and a Saquon Barkley or Jonathan Taylor. So I think he might be a situation where they might cut him or something. I don't know. If those kind of players are available, do you go after running back or do you go a wide receiver with how this offense is schemed up?
me. Um, well, I mean, it's a little biased. I saw what that Mike Evans tag is going to look like. I think I'm going running back because they're talking about Mike Evans getting 24 to 30
Yeah, that
million.
was ridiculous. I was like,
I think I can go draft somebody, but give me Saquon because I can use
Saquon.
Saquon in both roles. I'll send
Yeah,
Saquon on that wheel route 10 times a game.
that'd be that. I mean,
I
talking
think,
deadly. You talking deadly,
I,
man?
yeah, because even though we wanted running backs to get paid equally, I can underpay Saquon next this offseason
Yeah, listen, it is what it
and
is,
get him
man.
on a nice deal. I mean,
At least
I
here he
think,
would be able to hit some incentives, right? He'd be able to get some
yeah,
incentives here the way we run the football. So I mean,
yeah, we could pay him a lower contract because let's be honest, he's going to be 27. He's going to be 27 this offseason. So,
yeah.
um, only 2 years younger than Gus. So I think you get him on a 3-year deal, pay him around 6 to 7 million in base, throw a lot of incentives at him to be able to make more money. That way it's cap friendly, and we can use him in so many different ways.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. Like, I mean, like Michael Pittman would be really good in this offense, but I think the way they throw the football, we saw it. Like you said, we saw it Odell. Like Zay's going to be his guy. Zay's the number one wide receiver. We said this at the beginning of the year. We were like, by the end of the year, Zay's going to be number one. He's going to be number one, and he showed that in the AFC Championship game. He was the number one wide
Yeah,
receiver. But he looks the part too, though. Zay looks the part. Like he was making plays in the middle of the field. He looks like he's gonna be the number one wide receiver for this team. So what you're looking at is more of maybe a Calvin Ridley type guy or Zay Jones or those that kind of player, something like that. Maybe it's like a Nico Collins, because remember Nico was a number two
yeah,
before Tank Dell went down. So I mean, looking for somebody like that can kind of take that role as a number two guy. Like I don't think Odell's going to play that role. I think Nelson's fine being that third or fourth option right now. Maybe you go in the draft and find that guy in the third or fourth round, or maybe there's somebody in free agency that's willing to come here and play for Lamar. But yeah, I think in free agency, if a guy like Taylor is available, Saquon is available, like if that elite running backs available in free agency, they got to go get that guy. They
yeah,
got to. We saw with this even in the first game with JK, right? In the first game with JK, how explosive he was in that first game. We saw with the way the RPO, the Ravens run the RPO and stuff like that here, having that kind of explosive back has to keep defenses honest. You have to.
yeah,
You have to keep them honest, because if you pick the wrong one, either Lamar or the running back is gone for 70 yards.
yeah,
Easy. You have that kind of running back. But when you got guys like Gus and Justice Hill back there, they're like, we'll take our chances. We'll take our chances with that. We're more likely you'll get 25 or 30, but you're not gonna take it to the house on us. Now, if you got, like I said, the Saquon and Jonathan Taylor back there, it could be game over. So they need to
See,
have that elite running back there. They got to.
and, and I think there's a pathway to bringing in some big playmakers. I mean, what we've seen with these quarterback contracts is that you give them all this money, all this guaranteed money, but then you restructure it and open up cap space. I think last year
Mhm.
we saw Cleveland open up 50 million just by restructuring Deshaun, and we saw the Chiefs open up so much money by restructuring Pat. So I know there's a pathway for us to put some incentives and stuff in for Lamar or roster bonuses that make that money attainable for him, but take it off of the books. Because I think, we kind of talked about two moves. I mean, you bring in Saquon, bring in Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley is not that old, 1,000-yard receiver. We get him at a discounted rate. He hasn't hit his prime yet.
Yeah.
So I think he's somebody you bring in here, and he could definitely make some noise. I think he's somebody that really would do well in this offense. So, I'd love to see him come to Baltimore. Actually, he's a lot older than I thought he was.
Was he 29?
Yeah, my
Or about
man's
30?
about to turn 30.
But
Man, he
remember, he
left
got suspended for
Alabama
that
at
whole.
25 years. Well,
He got
based on
suspended
this,
for that 1 year.
he left Alabama at 25 years old. All right,
Oh,
let's
really?
take Calvin
I
Ridley
knew
off
it
the
was.
board. Yeah, he's a
I
senior
knew it was that
citizen.
old. Jeez.
I mean, there's some other guys. I mean, you still got
Yeah.
you
And it'll
got
be
T Higgins out there, Tyler
right.
Boyd.
Yeah.
You get the right deal, but I think you get in a guy at the right price, especially like a Saquon. Saquon would be a great pickup for us,
Yeah,
and
I
we
agree.
always have the draft. So I think we can play this right. We can open up some cap space by doing some restructures. I mean, we think about restructure candidates. You got Marlon Stanley if he
Right.
wants to be here.
Right.
You know what I mean? And Roquan's
Yeah.
been a team guy, but we can easily restructure his deal. Um, you know, we'll get JK off the books probably. We can restructure the Marcus Williams deal. I mean, there's a lot we can do. Keeping your core guys allows you to do more with the cap. So I think there's some stuff we can do. I think if I'm going to free agency though, but I'm prioritizing getting that explosive back because you can underpay them.
Yeah. Yeah. I think this is going to be very, they got to be very strategic in this offseason, right? It's not necessarily about the name. Like Saquon is a name, don't be wrong, but he definitely fits what this offense does, right? So I think well, Odell was a big name to bring in here this offseason. He wasn't utilized as much as we would have liked him to be in this offense. So I think they'll be very strategic about, how this offense is going to look. Like you said, they gotta hone into what they are, right? What is your identity? What are you going to do on this offense next season? What is it? You're going to run through this offense is going to run through the tight ends and the running backs for the most part. Like this running going to run through the tight ends and the running backs. Like, and if you run it like that, like, all right, we got to get some more agile linemen that can move, get past, shed their guys, and get to the second level to make plays up the field so that our running backs can have lanes to run through and stuff like that. Necessarily the bulk you get, just having a body out there, being more strategic about what kind of player they're going to be signing and drafting, right? To fit this offense the way they need to fit it. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
that's going to be.
I think one thing we could see EDC do is trade some of these guys that are in a backlog at certain positions to bring in more draft capital. I wouldn't be surprised if you see Charlie Kolar get traded for a fifth
Yeah,
round pick.
yeah.
Because I mean
They
he's
got what they got.
flat.
What's it? Vujacic? What? Not
Yeah.
Vujacic.
Yeah, that's him.
Vokalek.
Vokalek.
Yeah,
Oh,
they got Vokalek back
basketball.
there.
um,
That's it. Vujacic. I was like, I'm like, nothing gonna run
I mean, they're
wrong
both
sport.
6'8". I mean,
Right.
but I can see Kolar getting traded for a fifth round pick. EDC always fleeces somebody,
Make some moves. Yeah.
especially when we got people log jam. So I can see that occurring. Um, Man, if we're not able to, never mind. I'm not even going to go into that. I mean, Ajabo. I think Ajabo could find himself on the trade market. And is Gino a free agent or is he just
I think
up
he's a
for an
free agent.
extension?
I think he's
He
a
is
free.
a
I think
free
he's a
agent.
free agent. Yeah, but I
Okay,
think it may be one of those restricted free agent things. Like
restricted. I mean,
they can give him an offer if he takes it, or like the team has to match it or something. I don't know. But
I
yeah,
don't
I
know
wouldn't be
what we do
surprised if he
with
comes back
Gino.
though. I would not be surprised if
Yeah,
he comes.
if they're unable to work something out, this is not saying they're just going to straight up trade Geno.
Yeah,
If they're not able to work something out, and there's a great pick on the table, I could see Geno being traded. But I think that's highly unlikely. That's like a that's like a blizzard, like that type of tsunami type situation where it's very rare.
yeah.
That I think that
Corey
would
did say
happen.
Gino said he wants to come back. He said he was coming back. So maybe
Yeah,
they're
well, I
already
hope
working on
everything works
maybe
on
they're already
that.
working on something now. So let's hope.
Yeah,
Let's move on to get about now that football is over with. At least it's over with for us. Because I will say I have not. I can honestly say I didn't watch the Pro Bowl this past weekend. I haven't watched any of the Super Bowl stuff this week. I'm just like, no, I'm disinterested. I do not care. I'll have the game on in the background when the game comes on. Don't get me wrong, but it's because if the Ravens didn't make the playoffs, I don't watch this whole thing. I watch, all about the
yeah,
pageantry and all that stuff. But because we should be there, I ain't watching. I'm disinterested. I don't care. I can't stand to look at Pat Mahomes and Travis Kelsey grinning on TV. I just can't. I just can't do it to myself. So I'm like, you know what? And we know how it is this week, right? This week is they're talking about the same game for they've been talking the last 10 days. Same game. There's only but so much you can say about the same game for the last 10 days. So after a while, they're just talking over each other. But for those of you that are Orioles fans, we saw like a couple days after the Ravens, or not a couple days before the Ravens stay of the Ravens, whatever. We were all still in our feelings about Baltimore, the Ravens football team, and then it was announced I think in the middle of the night, around 8-9 o'clock at night, that the Angelos family had agreed to sell the Baltimore Orioles. I can't remember his name right now, to the new owner and the ownership group, but Cal Ripken is part of this group as well. And I was overjoyed. We had been talking about new ownership in Baltimore for 20 years, at least. We've been talking about this for too long. I think ever since Mike Messina and Manny Machado. Like we've had some good ones here. We've let them go because we refused to pay them. And it just felt like when we got Adley Rutschman, we have who was the number one draft prospect when he came in. You got Jackson Holliday, who has now been invited to spring training this year and is most likely going to be the starting shortstop for us at like 19 years old. This coming season, you got Gunnar, who came up this year, won AL Rookie of the Year. Midway, and he only came in up like after July, I think, after the All-Star break, he came up and he won Rookie of the Year in like a few months. So I'm like, you have the core talent now for the next next decade for this team. And I think a lot of us were like, oh no, it's the Angelos family. He was on the radio, John Angelos, about being very non-committal about re-signing Adley, re-signing Gunnar Henderson to long-term deals. And we're all sitting here like, don't like these guys. Don't get too attached to these guys for long because they're going to trade. They're going to be released soon. So we were like, here we go again. And after Mike Elias has built this team up, has put money into the international market now, they have Oriole camps now in the Dominican Republic. They got them in Panama. They got them all over now in Japan. They're all international. They're everywhere they weren't for the last 20 years. So they're building this up. They have the number one farm system again going into 2024. So it was, we were like, not getting our hopes up or whatever. But when the sale happened, we got ecstatic. And then a couple days later, the Ravens trade for Corbin Burns from the Milwaukee Brewers, who was a Cy Young winner not even 2 years ago. So he's one of the best pitchers in baseball. They bring him in here, so the fans are ecstatic. They're bringing Coca-Cola now products to Camden Yards, and not Pepsi anymore. I'm a Coca-Cola fan, so they're bringing Coca-Cola products to the stadium. It's I will say it brings the sting a little bit down from the Ravens thing because now that the Orioles are good now. We have something to look forward to here. Like we can just move on to spring training. We get a few weeks to mull this over and cry a little bit and all this other stuff. But now we get to look forward. I think the spring training starts in like 2 weeks. So we get spring training, get ready to go, and we can look forward to this season. But I think like you said, even though the way the Ravens season ended this year, like you said, I will agree. Both the teams have good young talent, core talent on both teams, and you can see this being like fruitful for at least the next 5 to 6 years. And we haven't had this in this town for a long time. We haven't had this in this town for a long time. And I'm just glad new ownership is here. I'm glad Cal's part of it. He's been wanting to be part of ownership for a long time. The Angeloses wouldn't allow it, but I'm glad that they're involved now. So I'm hoping now that, the new owner is here, that, they're not afraid to spend some money and, make this team, get to the promised land, in the next few years. I think as long as I've been alive, I've never had the luxury of watching an Orioles win a World Series. I've seen the Ravens do it twice. I've been able to see the Ravens do it twice. I have not been able to see the Orioles do it. So I would love to see that in the next few years.
Yeah, I'm old diehard Orioles fan who left out of frustration and just put baseball to the side altogether and just focus my attention on my Lakers and my Ravens. But I keep tabs on them. And what has been going on over probably the past 18 months with this team has been outstanding. It's been refreshing to see the investment put into young talent, into the farm system. And now with the sale of ownership, you really feel like there's hope for sustainability because, once before we had a nice run and it was a flash in the pan, and we lost all those guys, right? But now it feels like we're trying to build something sustainable. There's a huge commitment. And, I was reading up, after the sale on everything happening and all these guys we have just ready to rock. I mean, we have, what's the young guy's name? Holiday. He's challenging at second base, Jackson Holiday. He's a potential rookie of the year candidate this year if he gets that job. There's just so much depth and there's so many guys we can go to. Like this feels like, hey, not only can we challenge for the World Series this year, but we can challenge for it every year. It just feels like that's what we're building towards. And you feel the excitement about the Orioles. And, I feel like this could be a year where Camden Yards just gets rocking from start to finish, like back in the old Brady Anderson, Rafael Palmeiro, Cal Ripken days. So, man, I'm excited. I'm truly excited to see what this season, brings and what the future brings for the Orioles. That's all I can say. I haven't been a loyal fan, but they're trying to win me back.
Yeah, it's interesting the dynamics now around the Ravens and the Orioles, because we go from the Ravens kind of, wetting the bed, so to speak, in the last few weeks in the AFC Championship game, to the hope of now the Orioles. I mean, if the Orioles come out and, win the division again and get, further in the playoffs, maybe win a World Series, who knows? I don't know. But if they get to that point, the dynamics of this town change, right? It's like, I think for the longest time we've been Ravens fans because they've been winning the most out of between them and the Orioles over the last 20 years, since the Ravens have been in town. But I will say this, being, I live in, near Annapolis now, but the Baltimore is still a baseball town. It has been, always will be. I remember that I don't know if you remember the old Three Musketeers movie with Charlie Sheen and them. And there was that moment where I think the Musketeers were finally coming out of retirement, getting ready to fight, and they brought out their uniforms. They had them like stashed away somewhere in a closet or underneath the floors. And I feel like that's what Oriole fans are. Like we've been putting on Ravens gear for a long time now and having that Oriole stuff stashed away. And now we've never gotten rid of it. We never burned it. We never trashed it or anything. It's been here. And it's nice seeing, like, you see people come out with I got old 90s t-shirts and jerseys and stuff, they've been wearing for 30 something years. And, they got old, like, Jim Palmer jerseys and stuff. Like they still have it. The Orioles fans have still been around. So I think I think the dynamics will change depending on who wins the title first. If the Orioles win a World Series, especially because they haven't won one in 30 plus years since 1983, if they win a World Series, this becomes Orioles town again. It does.
Yeah.
And so I think that dynamic also changes how ownership works. Now you got a new owner in Baltimore, right? And as much as we love Steve and stuff, he won a Super Bowl now in 2012, but it's one of those, What have you done for me lately? Kind of businesses. And we're looking at what's happened with the Orioles, and they made a big signing. They're not done yet, and they're making improvements now to the lease is done. That they're apparently making some improvements to Camden Yards for this season. They're expanding some areas and stuff. Steve Bisciotti and the Ravens are adding on like a lounge kind of section on the side of the stadium now, to that area. So it's going to be kind of like I think it benefits the fans in both areas. They're going to be competing for fan bases at this point because of where the seasons meet, right? So if the Orioles are in the playoffs, the Ravens season starts right when the Orioles postseason starts. So if you're in the middle of October, the Orioles are, if they're having home games, fans got to pick. Do I go to this game, the Ravens game on Sunday, or I go to the Orioles game? What do I pay money for? Which one I'm going to go to? So it's going to be the Orioles and the Ravens at some point fighting for the money of the fans. These tickets aren't cheap, especially in the postseason. For football and football regular season is just expensive anyway. But they're gonna be fighting for fans for a while. So it would behoove the Ravens to not play around this offseason, right? Get what you need to get done, and go out there and win the damn thing. But at the same time, like I said, it's a good, if you're a Baltimore sports fan, it's a good space to be in. We haven't been in it for a while, and it will be nice to have the Ravens and the Orioles just be competing each year, possibly for the championship. So that's just good to have.
Yeah, and the pressure's on Bisciotti. I mean, like you said, that's what have you done for me lately? So, you're going to find the pressure to not only compete against other teams in the NFL, but now you're going to be competing for the attention of your own city. So pressure's on, man. We got to make moves this offseason if you're Steve Bisciotti. Can't let Harbaugh hold you hostage.
Yeah, since we got a few minutes, that's another thing. So before we get out of here, with Harbaugh, I know, look at the Steelers situation with Mike Tomlin. They're kind of a similar. It's weird. It's weird. We've always said the Ravens and Steelers are very similar, how the organizations run and everything else, and they're kind of in the same spot. Yeah, the Ravens made the AFC Championship game, but it's not that they lost; it's how they lost, right? You look at how the Lions lost their game, right? When Dan Campbell pretty much he cost them the game. He cost them the game. If he just kicked field goals, they win the football game, instead of going forward on fourth down every time. And, one thing you don't want to do as a head coach is be the reason why your team loses. And, when you look at that coaching staff and how they imploded on game day the way they did, the players getting their personal foul penalties and unsportsmanlike penalties and all that, doing everything that they didn't do all year.
Yep.
And this has to come back down to coaching. It has to come back down to coaching. And it kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Pause when Harbaugh kind of made the statement that Lamar Jackson was making calls at the line of scrimmage and kind of saying, some of these were pre-snap calls and stuff, kind of putting the blame, saying, oh yeah, that was on Lamar, that wasn't on me. I'm like, and him coming out at halftime, I think that third quarter interview that they do when they come out of halftime, and he's like, yeah, we got to run the football more. And he said the same thing in the press conference. We were trying to run the football, we just never got around to it. I'm like, you're the head coach. You're the head coach. Whatever you say goes, man. If you telling Monken, hey, we need to run the football, run the football. Like, I don't know what it is that Harbaugh just seems afraid to get involved in either one defense or offensive scheme and just lets the coordinators do whatever, because this is clearly not a Monken thing, because he did the same thing with Greg Roman. He did the same thing with Wink Martindale. Like, he lets the coordinators kind of do what he wants, and he just kind of sits there with that stupid grin on his face like, I don't know what the hell's going on. What happened? I don't know. And at some point as a head coach, you may not know scheme and all that, but you can clearly see the game, the way it's going. And then I think one of the journalists asked, during the press conference, did you know at any point that you only had 6 carries between your running backs? He's like, yeah, we just don't keep track of things like that. We just don't know. I'm like, so you're trying to tell me in halftime, y'all didn't realize, hey, we need to run the football a little bit more? Like, come on, you going into the game knowing Willie Gay is out, right? They're the one of the worst rush defenses in the NFL. You saw the Bills the week before run 188 yards on them.
You don't run the ball.
and you don't run the football. That right there was, in my opinion, if I was owner, was fireable.
Oh
That
yeah.
was fireable. Like if you lose, like I said, if you lose the game and it's 45-37, it was like that's just that kind of game, man. Playoff game. We saw it with the Bills and the Chiefs a couple years ago. We saw it. This is that kind of game. To lose the game like that, you didn't play your best football. You didn't scheme the right way. You panicked in the middle, early in the football
So
game.
much worse. So
Like
much worse.
a lot of people said, like when the Chiefs would score when the Chiefs went up 14-0, they felt the game was over.
Yeah.
They said the game was over at that point when the Ravens went up, when the Chiefs, and then they answered with a touchdown at 7. But when they scored, when their defense gave up 2 back-to-back touchdowns, it's like Harbaugh the game was over mentally.
Yeah.
It was over. I think Andy Reid and them knew if we can score in them early, even if we get 10 points, we get 10 points in them early, they're going to fold.
Yeah.
Same thing happened with the Tennessee Titans. Same thing happened with the Bills. They get up on this Ravens team in the playoffs and they panic.
Yeah.
They panic. That's not a disciplined team. That's not a well-coached team. I don't care what anybody says about Harbaugh and his tenure. He's a likable guy and all this other stuff. He's one of the worst coaches when it comes to game management. He is awful.
Yeah.
He is awful. He is terrible. And that proves it. I don't care how likable he is, and that's great in the regular season. But at the end of the day, your goal is to win Super Bowls. And because of how everything had played out, it was the red carpet was out. The red carpet was out for this Ravens team to get this roll right into the Super Bowl. And they panicked. At some point, like I think Corey said it there. I think Corey said it with the mediocrity. You got to wonder, you got to at some point start. We criticize Harbaugh, but at the same time, Bisciotti's the one that makes the decision at the end of the day.
Yeah.
How long are you gonna be pilling up with this man? Because let's be real. With the way Lamar plays, we're gonna maybe be able to get another 5 years out of this at prime Lamar.
Yeah. Another
5 to 6 years out of this. How long are you gonna be willing to deal with this? If this was gonna happen every postseason. Because now teams know the playbook. We're going to press, score 10 or 14 points for our first 2 possessions. This game's over because they're going to fold.
Mm-hmm.
They know the script now. If this is the deal and you're Steve Bisciotti, like, no, I can't be. I don't care if we can't go undefeated in the regular season or go 14-2 or whatever it is, and then lose the way we lose in A's. No, we can't. That can't happen. That cannot happen
at all.
At least the Orioles had the excuse, in their postseason, they didn't have any pitching. Everybody knew what their issue was. They could hit, but everybody was like, yeah, they don't have that pitching, though, to get them where they need to in the playoffs. We understood that part. This Ravens team, you had to run, you had 4 running backs. You had like 4 running backs ready to go. 3 or 4 ready, and you only used 2 of them 6 times.
Yep.
Total. So, yeah.
I mean, at this point, we're going on and on about this, and we just gotta. Harbaugh has to show improve. Like we're wasting, like you said, Lamar's good years. If we want to be a team that we have this, once in a lifetime quarterback, and you're not able to get 1 Super Bowl out of him. That's a failure as an organization.
Mm-hmm.
When you get these transcendent players, you have to get a Super Bowl out of them. We got 5 years to get a Super Bowl out of Lamar. If we don't get a Super Bowl out of him, it's a failure.
Mm-hmm.
It's a complete and utter failure. So EDC has done a lot of the work. He did a great job this year to get us that first Super Bowl. Harbaugh, it's coming down to him. It's coming down to Harbaugh. If Harbaugh does not have a great year, because you asked it in the group chat this week, what does Harbaugh do? What did I say, Miles? He dances, he throws challenge flags.
He's the band leader. That's what he does.
And he just gives injury reports in games.
Yeah, that's it.
I don't know what else he does.
He calls the ice cream trucks when they have in training camp. He gets the ice cream truck down there. He does that. Yeah. He does like the team building activities. He organizes those. That's what he does.
Yeah. So, um, it's tough. It's tough. Because we're hamstrung by a coach that the owner and the GM seem to be, I don't know if he has blackmail on them. Bashadi's dropping the N word in the email and Harbaugh has it, but there's no reason for this man to still be the coach.
Yeah.
There's no reason. It's time at some point to move on, and this year showed it. So, are we going to waste a transcendent player, or are we going to let this coach lead us into mediocrity? Because what's coming down the pipeline when Lamar's done? He's 27 now. So, if you're saying at his play style, we got 5 more years, what are we doing after 5 years? We're going to head right into mediocrity.
Mm-hmm.
And as a Ravens fan, after that Super Bowl, we saw some years of mediocrity, and that's not a place I want to go again.
Yep.
So, something has to get done. I mean, we have talent all the way across the board. We got to utilize it. And it seems like defensively, we seem to get the best out of our players. Offensively, I don't know. Holistically, I know for a fact we're not getting the best out of our players, because for you to have a top 10 offense and a top 2 defense and we lose in the AFC Championship game, it doesn't add up.
No. Nope. Nope. So I said it's the beginning of the year. It's Lamar Harbs. They paid Lamar. And I think Harbs is signed until the 2020 end of 2024. I think he got a 2-year extension like 2 years ago. So that could be like I said, this year for sure. If there's only 1 year left on that deal, I wouldn't be surprised if Steve Bisciotti just like, you know what, he just eats the money and find somebody else. Because especially if the Orioles get to like the ALCS or something, like if the Orioles get to the ALCS and they're like knocking on the door, they're like, all right, man, like time clock is ticking, because those ticket sales, those tickets, what people were willing to spend their money on, is how expensive things are. People are going to pick one thing to go to. If the Orioles are good, they're going to go to the Orioles. If the Ravens are good, they're going to the Ravens. They're going to pick one. So here's what it is. But that's our show. Obviously Trey wasn't here, so he's still in traffic 3 hours later. He's that Jersey Philly traffic. So we'll hopefully he gets home safe. But we'll take a little bit of a break until probably the draft. Right around the draft, we'll probably take a little bit of a break until the draft, unless some big free agency news happens. But other than that, we're going to probably take a break until the draft, and then we'll get ready for that. And then once training camp starts, we'll get back into our regular rotation. But thanks for watching us this season. Appreciate y'all. Yeah, hopefully they figured this stuff out. Hope we have some good news when we come back to y'all, especially this April. But from us here live from the hammock, see y'all. Hope the 49ers win the Super Bowl. Hope 49ers win the Super Bowl. I don't want to see the Chiefs win. Please. I don't need any more of this. But yeah, we'll catch you guys later this year. All right. Peace.
Peace.